Hello everyone, I'm Isaac Mori. Welcome to Talk Commerce. Today we'll be hearing from Martin Balaam, the founder and CEO of Pimberley, a product information management SaaS. We'll be learning about product information management and what makes it so important in this globalized world of e-commerce. And the aspect of this all that stands out to me the most is the role that product information management plays in AI optimization. Clean, structured data is irreplaceable when it comes to showing up in AI engines and performing well in agentic commerce. So if you're an e-commerce store owner or marketer and you're looking to thrive in the era of AI, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. We got a lot of ground to cover, so without any further ado, let's dive straight into the conversation with Martin and our host, Brent Peterson.
Hey everyone, Brent Peterson here from Talk Commerce. You know what really got me thinking about style? My kids. They looked at me one day and said, "Dad, you just can't wear hoodies and conference t-shirts anymore." They were right. As someone who's constantly meeting with e-commerce leaders, speaking at conferences, and recording podcasts, I need to look sharp. But honestly, I hate shopping for clothes. That's where Taylor comes in and rescued me. Here's how it works. You rent clothes instead of buying them. I get my own personal stylist who curates my perfect outfits and sends them to me. I can even text them about upcoming events, whether it's a big client meeting or a conference keynote. Every month, I rent 5 to 7 pieces from quality brands that fit my style perfectly. I wear them for weeks, get compliments, then send them back in a prepaid envelope when I'm done. No commitment, no clutter. And here's what I love about renting. No decision fatigue, no cluttered closets, and I'm always trying some new styles I never would have picked myself. Plus, if you really love something, you can buy it at a discount. The best part, even my kids approve of my style. If you're tired of stressing out about what to wear, try renting from Taylor. Go to taylor.style, that's Taelor.style, and trust me, your future self will thank you. Welcome to this episode of Talk Commerce. Today I have Martin Balaam. He is the CEO of Pimberley. Martin, go ahead, do an introduction for yourself. Tell us your day-to-day role and maybe one of your passions in life.
Yeah, hi Brent. Thank you for having me on. My name's Martin Balaam. I'm the CEO and founder of Pimberley. We are a SaaS PIM, product information management and digital asset management platform. I founded the company in the UK, but I've been over living in the US for the last 3 years as we expand into the US. So that's who I am in terms of my passions, as well as my family, etc. I love classic cars, and I love to tinker around with those. And my wife says that I've got, I don't know if you'll get this joke, but I've probably got the most expensive scrapyard that there is, as it were. So that's me.
Well, I can say that 20 years ago, I probably had 3 Citroens and at least 4 or 5 Minis in my yard. So
Oh, wow.
I totally get it. And I imported a whole container full of the classic Mini into the US.
Well, that's obviously, given the experience I am, that's the one that I would be thinking of when you said Mini. Yeah.
There you go. Not the new one, the old one. Anyways, so before, thank you for that. Before we get started, you have graciously volunteered to be part of the Free Joke Project, and now I should have had a car joke. But anyways, here we go. I said to my wife, "You seem a lot happier." She said, "Thanks. I uploaded our entire argument to ChatGPT, and it said I was absolutely right."
Yeah, I'd give that a 10-11, that hour 13.
All right, yeah. That's perfect. All right, Martin. So I think most of our listeners know what a PIM is, but just give us an elevator pitch when somebody walks in and says, "What's a PIM?" What do you tell them?
Yeah, so a PIM essentially is an e-commerce tool platform that is your single source of truth for all things product data. And data is, whether that's just data or whether it's images, videos, documentation that might need to go with it. And what a PIM does is it basically accelerates the time and optimizes that product data for all the end marketplaces and websites and whatever that you need to sell at, regardless of what country they're in, what language they need to be in, etc. And so it really helps you onboard product a lot quicker, get more optimized, more engaging product information, and ultimately allow you to sell more and to convert more.
I know you kind of hinted at it that all the different endpoints that we have now to sell products. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people maybe 10 or even 15 years ago would have thought, oh, my e-commerce is a great PIM, right? But now maybe kind of explain to us why that central point of having all your product data and then being able to publish it to all the different endpoints is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. On that point that you said, I'm sure people think e-commerce. As you say, 10, 15 years ago, they think about a website. Well, actually, you know nowadays when you're wanting to sell because of true globalization, you can literally, even if you're selling physical products, you can get those products pretty much next day anywhere in the world. So your sort of your opportunity is being able to reach out to as many consumers in the globe as you like, and obviously those consumers are just like you are. They have their go-to e-commerce platform, whether that's an Amazon, an eBay, a Temu, or whatever, or if you're in Holland, it might be a Ball, etc. And if you want to sell your products around the world globally, you probably need to be touching at least 100 different e-commerce platforms, marketplaces, call them what you want. And really, if you think about as you grow and expand outside your normal geo, you're increasingly going to need to do all to get your products listed onto all these places, and every single one of them have a different methodology of how to get your product data on there, how to interact with their systems, and so in what's become essential for people that are and businesses that are actually doing global e-commerce is to actually have a simple source of truth, single source of truth for product data, which is a PIM, that can actually manage all these different variants, understand, what the different validation rules are for each of the endpoints, and be able to deliver the validated product data to where it needs to be, such that it gets listed and you get to sell.
Are there any particular struggles or anything that people should now be looking at when they're PIM, when they're thinking about what is Perplexity going to want, or what is ChatGPT going to
Yeah.
want when they're starting to do the LLM purchasing?
Yeah, I think again, for those that have started to plan or even implement for this sort of agentic LLM new landscape that we're on, actually creating a product data that's listing to your e-commerce website or etc. is just one element. That's the human side of it, and nowadays, if you really want to be sort of pushing the envelope to the LM, you're also actually publishing that product data in a easily machine readable format. And people say, well, what does that mean? Well, it's, for example, it's making sure that all your data is in accordance with things like schema.org, that you're actually publishing an LLM sort of friendly product data feed, ideally with intermingled with what stock you've got available where at what time, because when LLM agents or whatever or are interacting with that, it's usually very conversational, and they're wanting to give a response back to the consumer that's specific to their where they are now, what stores are they near. Because they're on their mobile phone, they know exactly where they are. They know whether they're walking or whether they're traveling in a car or a train or whatever, and where they're going to. So they want to give a really relevant response back, which means that you have to give, better raw data that's in that structured content that LLM can understand and understand precisely.
I hosted a panel at eTail, which is a online retail conference that happens in the spring and the fall, whatever. But one of the things that we asked the audience was, how many of you as merchants are employing agentic? Like that's the buzzword, right?
Yeah.
Agentic commerce. Nobody raised their hand. So what kind of tells me that people are planning, but not implementing yet in terms of agentic commerce. And I think that there's a wide variety. There's a tool set that you get from all your product data that you can actually create a bot, right? That is a
Yep.
agent. But then there's this new idea of deploying a bot to go and buy something for you.
Mm-hmm.
How far down the road do you think we are from that happening?
Well, I was recently at a distribute. I think in B2B world, a lot nearer than what people think. In fact, actually, I think in B2B, they're probably, unusually might be overtaking B2C in terms of adoption of some of this technology. Because obviously in B2B, the primary objective is buying the precise product that you need. The secondary objective is sort of like, is it the right price? Because in B2B land, you can always, if you feel that you've not been given the right price by your supplier, you can always go back afterwards and negotiate something on that. But fundamentally, if you're needing a part for a piece of machinery that's broken, the number one thing is, I need this, I need that, I need the exact specifications. And if you don't have that part actually in stock, or maybe it's end of life, what is the next nearest replacement that will work? And that is a lot of very specific data that lends itself to Agentic. And I would suggest that, certainly from the conversations I've had, that's already getting deployed in some of the more mature B2B companies. Whereas in B2C land, I think, I don't know, I think the general sort of thing is that consumers are using, their whichever LLM they like better, whether that's ChatGPT or whether it's Gemini or whatever, and they're asking its questions and asking it to do things for them in terms of maybe write a complaints letter or write this, that, and the other. But they're not yet asking it to, or giving it enough trust to go away and transact on their behalf. But that is probably not too far away, especially for the very early adopters, and especially if the likes of OpenAI and whatever, start getting some sort of banking arrangement in place. And I think you might see consumers starting off with like micropayment sort of stuff, saying, well, actually, I don't care. You know what toothpaste I want, or you know what toothbrush I use, or whatever, and it's only a $5 thing. I'm happy for you to go away and buy it, and go, and where I like shopping at Walmart, or I like shopping at Amazon. Just go off and order me that, and I think that will start coming pretty soon.
Yeah, I think going back to B2B, I think that's more of an interesting play, and I think that especially for PIMs, allowing an agent to come in and get all the product data that it wants, and I think if we look at what an ERP does, or WMS, ERP system is usually the central point for financial data and maybe your core product data. I think a lot of merchants who are maybe bootstrapped tend to try to put as much into the ERP or the e-commerce engine, but your real beautiful data, we'll call it, happens in your PIM, right? And do you see that the PIM might be the first point in which an agent would come to you and say, hey, I need to know everything about this widget. Tell me everything about it so I can go back, and then we'll assess pricing later even.
Yeah, no, don't forget, these agents also understand, just like Google, at the end of the day, it will also be scoring. It'll be saying, how often do I come to this supplier's PIM and get exactly what I need? And if it's pretty good data, and don't forget, this data might be locked in a PDF document, especially if you're looking at, industries where the products are evergreen, and literally, you could have I hark back to components and things like that. You might have a machine that's 20 years old, and actually the product data isn't existing in a data form, but it is existing buried in a PDF service manual or whatever. Then again, letting that LLM know, well, okay, and then obviously you go away with your little bots in your PIM to say, I need to go away and find this, have I got it, and giving it back. So, I absolutely see it going that way. And also, as I came back at the beginning of that question, it's, if you can deliver that, guess what? The bots will just keep coming back to you, because all they want to do is do their job. They want to get told they've done a great job, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, and actually, being from the Midwest and using a lot of Claude Code, I can tell you that the LLMs don't care if you're passive aggressive or not. They just want to be direct, and you
Yeah,
can swear it as much as you want, and they don't really care.
yeah, and as well, I think there is a big difference, as I said, in B2B and B2C. B2B will be more about precise long tail data. I think B2C will be more contextual about, and that's a big thing for brands in B2C, is to start collecting as much contextual information about the products that you sell, because it's more about the story of the product. And I think that'll, from the LLM's point of view, the consumer will be asking it. They'll be talking more about what they want and where they're going and why they need it, and how they want to feel. And so, you don't get that from raw data. You get that from the stories behind the other people that have bought that product, and sort of, making sure that you're starting to collect that. And this is where reviews are going to come back in. And I've already seen, a lot of B2C customers talking to us about, right, I need to get my reviews in my PIM now. Before it would be it's in my review engine, we don't put it anywhere near. Now it's like, no, these are really super important now.
How you mentioned PDFs, and I talked to a company that was looking for investors for a PDF to data extraction specifically for procurement and B2B, and a lot of older legacy systems are either giving or sending a PDF instead of EDI, which is even older probably than PDF. But how important is it that you see even the vectorization, and then that data is in a database instead of in a PDF? How important is that in the B2B space, and how much is Pimberley looking at the vectorization of all these flat files?
Yeah, no, I mean, we think it's really important, and in fact, we've got a research project going with a university in England to do just that. But because at the moment you can do it at low volumes, you can use AI to pull out, the data that you need, but you still need a lot of human interaction to set up all the prompts so that it is super accurate. And really what you want to be doing is, and what we're looking at is, well, look, if we've got let's say 20, we've got some customers with 20, 30, 40 million pages of locked up data at the end of the day. And what you want to be doing is a multi-layered sort of AI approach, which is sort of mimicking what you would do, with humans, if it's doing the prompts and doing the QA and whatever. And we've got a project going on this year just specifically to do that. So we see that as super important for our sort of B2B customers, especially in industrials, etc. Which, as I say, is very different to the B2C, where it's capturing all that conversational interaction with their product that they're after.
We in the green room we talked about a couple of different PIM systems. What makes Pimberley? What sets Pimberley apart from some of the other PIMs out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're one of the things, I guess, that's really different about us is where we've come from, which is fundamentally, I have a family business that manufactures and distributes furniture in the UK, and so Pimberley was being built around that sort of ethos of complex, many sort of combinations of products, etc., being able to deal with some fairly hefty digital assets that need to go with it, and a lot of conditionality and complexity. So I think if somebody's, what I normally do is really sort of say, if you've got great product data, but your issue really is, how do I syndicate that onto multiple sort of retailers, etc., some great syndication tools for doing that. But so I'd probably put my hand up and say that's probably not Pimberley. But if you're looking for a PIM DAM solution that can really truly be the single source of truth for all your product data, handle lots of high complexity and lots of conditionality, and also you're more sort of you care more about what the product data is and how refined it is, and specific to your end use point. That's us. And then the other thing is that we're sort of I call us a full service software company. Everything is done in house, including implementation. So rather than handing off to a third party integrator, which we do work with. Obviously if it's part of a big digital transformation, you do. But fundamentally, it'll be our crack team that do nothing other than implement PIMs, and probably, I'd say probably implement more PIM solutions in the world than any other dedicated team. So we know what they're doing. They know what the sort of pitfalls are. And also we're because we're British, we'll say if we can't do something, we won't oversell.
Right. I have to ask the question about tariffs and how much that's impacting the amount of data somebody has to keep. And I think as you get more granular and as you have to find different suppliers, maybe some of that data has to change. Do you see an advantage of having all your data in that one spot, that even during some of these times where you're doing a lot of shifting, especially if you're manufacturing something and you're trying to keep those products in one place, that you can shift it? And then I guess finally on that a little bit, what do you also store the manufacturing data of the whole part, or does most of that happen within the ERP or the WMS system?
Yeah, so on the first point, obviously, if you suddenly have we've had tariffs for a long time, but we've not had them change as much as they have done for a very long time, and be as impactful as well in terms of potential cost. So one of the first things, obviously, that you do when faced with a potential significant increased input cost is ask, well, how does it impact me? Which of my suppliers are going to be impacted? And don't forget, you got to look down a couple of layers, because there might be a US supplier today, right now, but if 2/3 of their components are getting hit by tariffs, guess what? Even though you might have that purchasing power to ultimately say, I'm not taking a price increase, at the end of the day, that medium long term, if that's a not sustainable partnership for them with you, you'll have to ultimately find a new supplier. So first of all, having that information, and then which has been really, we've seen a lot of people, you can see adding additional attribution, etc., to capture this so they can understand. And then the next thing is being able to move your your supply chain around, in terms of, well, who's got what, where's it coming from, what impact has it has. It's certainly been a benefit to our customers having that data, and if they've not, we've seen them adding it. The other thing as well is that, especially you get suppliers with huge volumes of product and product items and variants and whatever. Some of the things that they've been faced with just the huge processing that's needed to compute, to actually run and say, okay, well, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? What happens if that? What if we move from here to there? I would imagine that there's a lot of AWS compute and whatever that have been very happy with all these tariffs because of all the extra compute that's been going on to work out all the different scenarios. So and we've seen that with a few customers where it's like, well, because they're having to cut it against their entire database sometimes, and they're saying, well, look, it's taken me nearly all night to get to this sort of thing, and then guess what? It changes the next day, and they have to run it all again. So that's that part of it. In terms of information in the ERP, etc., and WMS, we tend to find that where people have a PIM, they will consciously try and then minimize the amount of data that is required in the ERP, so that really it just is for being able to transact. And also, don't forget, when you come to personalization, and even if it's B2B or B2C, if you're wanting to display a different product description, different features and bullet points for exactly the same SKU, then you don't want to be putting that in your ERP. You don't want to. You come across regularly people when you're implementing a PIM for them, they'll have multiple different SKUs for the same product. just because they've had to do that to be able to get different product descriptions for different customers, as it were, or different marketplaces. And that's definitely a thing that we try and help them with, and say, no, you don't have to have all that. We can go back to having one SKU, not having to have somebody when they get an order through having to say, well, actually, no, that is the same SKU as that one, so with a note on it or whatever to make sure they understand. So yeah, and then warehouse management systems similarly, again, helping them reduce the number of, if you like, phantom SKUs that they're having to use because they've been needing to manipulate the system to give them what ultimately their marketing team and sales team wants at the customer facing end.
Yeah, wow, you're bringing back great memories, Martin, of my previous days in that space. So we have a few minutes left, Martin.
Yeah.
Before we go, I give everybody a chance to do a shameless plug about anything they'd like. What would you like to plug today?
Yeah, well, I've got to sort of like plug Pimberley out now. That's why we're on. So yeah, I mean, if we've got listeners out there that fit that bill, you've got complex product data, you may be set on an old legacy on-premise MDM or PIM solution, and you're looking at what maybe the next step is for you, then you can go on our website, pimberley.com. Lots of places on there to get in touch with us. I'd love to hear from you.
And the show, do you do the show circuit? Do you go? Will you be at any conferences or anything coming up?
Yeah. So I'm at the we're at Shop Talk Fall in Chicago next week, or week after next, sorry. And also I'll be presenting at the National Association of Wholesalers Tech Innovators Summit next week. And then after that, we're at the Hardy Show, which is the HVAC show in Las Vegas. So yeah, we keep ourselves busy.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll see you at Shop Talk. I'll be there as well.
Right.
So
look forward to it.
All right, Martin, it's been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
That's a pleasure. Thank you. And I bet you wish you still had a mini left.
That's right. I sure do.
Yeah.
All right. That went great. Yeah. Thank you.
Talk Commerce is a production of Content Basis, LLC. For more creative content, go to contentbasis.io.